Hello everyone, Jonas aka Synsonic here, and today I'm gonna talk about structure and because I've got some question about it and how I structure my music projects. Because I usually use the same type of structure on most of my music and projects because it makes it easier for me to find and get around to get things done. So these are actually the base that's always there. Reference, inspiration, MIDI, FX, the group channels, the effects channels. And reference inspiration is the place where I usually place if I have another track that I want to use for A/B comparison when it comes to image of sound and how bass is balanced and volume, and so I can compare. It's an easy way to do it. And I can also, if I have some old project or something that I want to redo in a other way or a better way, I can just drop in the WAV file here and listen to it because it's uh, easier to actually start over sometimes when redoing something that is a bit older. And then we have MIDI, and this folder is only MIDI notes and events. So here you will find all the everything for the synths and drums and so on, because I am a old hardware synth user because I'm done this for many years, so it's kind of the reason why I call it MIDI still. And if we take it to the next level here, we can see there is synth, drums, and trigger patterns. And the synths, we have another layer of folders, and this is actually one of the reasons why I like working in Cubase, because of how I can manage and structure my music pretty easy and simple without having to show everything all at once, because showing all tracks at once can be pretty confusing and nasty sometimes when if you have many tracks and many layers and events to find what you're looking for when you're doing editing and adding and so on. Anyway, so here synths are all the synths, and we can take, for example, melody drop here, and let's take a look at the melody drop. And this folder level contains 3 synths, here, here, and here. This one is the main, This one is the secondary. And that's used just to give it some flavor and a bit extra. And the third is used in the end to add another layer. And together they are like this. But it is not all of these layers that contains multiple synths. For example, simple tones here. There is only one synth in it actually. But it has some automation for filtering and volume here, so it's still easy to put it away and edit. Easy for edit when you can find it easy. Like here we have multiple, and it's easy to edit the automation and frequencies and so on here too. And if I had to in this simple tones layer, I could easily add another layer if I want to, but it's not needed for this part actually. And sorry about that. There. Yes. Okay. Next, because this is the synths, and we have pads, and there are multiple pad patterns and synths here. So let's go to the next part. Here we have drums, and drums is actually the place where sometimes it's not only MIDI data. If you take a look here, there we have a reversed crash, and that's actually a wave. So that's sort of the only exception, the place, the drums where I sometimes drop in waves on place like this, because I usually have them triggered by MIDI as I use the Groove Agent in Cubase to control my drums by MIDI patterns. And if we take another look here, I have another part called the trigger kick, and this this is not a real kick like the top one here. That's the real kick. This is just a short tick sound, like a short, very short hi-hat, just to give used to give a signal that something should happen. So what this does is actually, I have this without sound out stereo bus, so when playing this you don't hear it. But however, this sound signal is used for sending a signal to a sidechain in the compressor placed on the bass, because kicks can have a pretty long tail sometimes, and when you sidechain and mix bass and kick with sidechain compression, it's not always that you need all the space and length that that the kick do from its original, and then it's easier to have a short trigger signal, because then you can control it by attack and release and make it as short or long as you need for it to work better in the mix. There are other ways too. You can use like the LFO tool and other VST plugins like that to mimic and emulate sidechain compression. But I've done that too. But sometimes I don't do it like that, because I like having it triggered by MIDI and a short audio file like this sometimes, because then I can control it and its pattern in a more MIDI controlled way in timing and how, and that can sometimes work better than in LFO tool, as it is pretty much more spot on and always the same patterns. So next part is trigger patterns, and here we have a trigger pattern, and that's actually pretty much the same idea as the kick trigger, because this is also a short audio file. It doesn't have to be short, the signal audio out from this, but it's used to, it doesn't have a big compression. I usually use this on a gate, because with gates, and you can sidechain them and make stuttering short bursts of sound when you trigger by sidechain on a gate. And then you can make like pads and strings and choirs or whatever, like stutter in and in how it sounds, and that can be pretty cool sometimes if that's what you want to achieve. And here, after the MIDI in the root, we have FX, and yeah, well, this is pretty there. This is actually where all the effects are placed, and so there are waves here. I would say mostly, because there even sometimes even are synths here, as they are programmed to work as effects. Like here we have FX synth that's doing some sort of sweep, I believe. And next we have group tracks, and this is actually how Cubase deals with grouping and audio from wherever, like synths and effects. And here we have lead, and this leads group are actually, if we take a look at synths and melody drop, you can see it has this. I have put the same color on this just to make sure that I'm sure that it belongs to the same group. So I've always have the same color on my synths as on the summary bus, group that it is, because then I know, okay, I had yellow and then I have yellow here, and then I can summarize and find. It's an easy way to get around. Colors are good. Yes. So here we have leads to the bass and the kick and drums. And I actually always split kick from drums, because the kick is a pretty important part in this type of music. So I don't want it to be in the same group or bus like the rest of the drums, because the kick and the bass are so important that they work together, that they are easier and more or less needed to be separated, as they need to work very well together, because that's pretty important for a track to sound good. And then we have pads and we have effects, and there are actually, here we can see I have effects and sidechained effects. And this is just because sometimes I want to have effects just like they are, or sometimes if I want to have it like pumping with the sidechain effects, I just route the effects to this, and I have a VPS multiband sidechain here. It's sort of like the LFO tool actually, but I've had this for a long time, so I use this actually still, even though I have the LFO tool too. Okay, and last we can see there I have several tracks here with master at the start, and these are made actually when the track is complete in content. I never do this before I'm done with the track, because this is the place where I summarize all the previous groups and so on, to do the final tweaks. And these tweaks are usually probably just leveling. Sometimes I can put an EQ on, and maybe, but it's sometimes easier to do some minor adjustments if you feel like, okay, the lead is too loud, but you want to get all of the lead a bit lower, so you don't have to go up and lower all the lead sounds and everything in the group. So it's a good way to have it split up like that, and it's also a good way to, because if they are grouped like this, and you can then export these as stems and have them separated, and you can like do very micromanagement and even send them to some other dude to master and make sure that these work even perfect together for mastering. And at last, we have the FX channels, and FX channels are part of Cubase, because you can make just an FX channel, because FX channels are made for separating effects from the original source itself, because it's good to, if you have a synth but you want a big reverb or a big delay, it's actually better usually to have the effects separated from the synth itself, because it's a better way to control and make it sound good. So if we take a look at the melody drop here, this one, you can see that I have a few inserts here, but it's mostly EQ, compression. But if we play this, you can still hear it's a long tail, and if we take a look down here, you can see that there are things happening on the melody drop reverb and even the drop delay. And this, the drop parallel compression, because I have audio sends. These are the sends, and they are used to send signal of the instrument down here to these. And this is a good way to, because if we can do like this, let's play this and just shut things off, and you will hear. So this is a good way to have control of your effects. And you can see I have automation on the, I see that that's wrong spelled, reverb, not reverb. But anyway, you can see that there are automation for volume and so on. But there are other effects here too that has some automation. So this is how I structure my tracks and have control of how to find things. So tree structuring and coloring to match what they belong to, because all of these colors, the pink, the green, the yellow, the blue, they all match the color of the group and track and the synth or sound that they belong to. So that's how I do to structure my tracks. We can, if we expand this, you can see that it's a lot of things. There are many things happening. So there is quite a lot of things, And that's why it's very good to group things and keep track of how things are structured and so on. You don't have to, or at least I don't. I don't usually have all these types of groups, but when I add something new, I I think it's done. I put it in a group like this because I want to keep it and it's done. But usually when I open a new project, there is MIDI and there is synths and drums always in one place because those are always consistent, and the MIDI and the FX and things that are always there too are the lead, the bass, kick, and drums. Because though those are always there, so I don't have to create everything from scratch again. Okay, I hope this has been a bit helpful, and I have shown you guys how things on these tracks are structured. And we can just have if you want to, we can have a fast look here at we see here's the intro, the drums, then comes the picture. Here we introduce plucks. The drums are rolling, and then it's time for a break. We have some effects. And here introduce some drums, have a break, there are effects here, and here we start to build, and then it's all in and all on the loose, pads, plucks, and then it fades out. Have some other in the end here. It's just ideas and concepts, not in use. Yep. Okay. Till next time. Bye.